Great, so welcome back to Grade 8 Math. We're now looking at different types of percent problems. The most important formula for you to remember is this P over 100 or percent over 100 equals part over original, or we can look at it as part over whole equals P over 100. And you can interchange those two sides as well because there's an equal sign. So let's just solve a couple of these problems and just try to remember where the part in the original or the part in the whole are in each of these problems. So for letter number 1A, 25% of 176. Well, I know the P over 100 equals part over whole. I'm not going to rewrite this formula each time, but as long as I remember it, then I'll be able to solve most of my percent problems using this format. 25% goes where the P is, so 25 over 100, and then part over whole. This 176, if I say 25% of this whole amount, this becomes the whole because I'm talking about 25% of this entire amount. So that's 176, and I'll leave part with a letter N, or any variable is acceptable as well. Then I can use cross multiplication in order to solve this. N equals 176 times 25 divided by 100, and I get the answer 44. Okay. Another way of looking at this is 25%. I can change 25%, so let me just borrow some room here. 25% is the same thing as 0.25. Now that and of means multiplication, so 25% of 176. So 0.25 times 176 gives still the answer of 44. So either way, I can solve this percent problem using either proportions or by using decimals. I can follow along with letter B and find out 160% of something is 64. So that means 160% is 160 over 100. And the part over the whole, well, 64 is the answer, so that's the part of the original one. So 64 will be the part, and then the whole amount I'll leave as W. Now 160% means I'm going to have a smaller number because the answer is greater than the original number, because 160% is quite a lot, is more than the original. So if I solve this, W equals 40. Does this make sense? That 160%, which means more of its original, of 40 is 64. It makes sense because it's more than the original amount. Letter C is where I don't know the percent, so P over 100, and then of the whole amount is 2,400, so that's on the bottom, and the denominator, and 19.2 is the part, and so that stays in the numerator. I solve this using cross multiplication again, and I find that P in this case, or the percent, is 0.8, so that means that it is 0.8%. Does that make sense? Well, 1% of 2,400 is 24. 1/100th of 2,400 is 24. So 19.2 is less than 1% of that amount. Okay? If we now look at an actual word problem, I can solve using these same method. The seating capacity at Olympic Stadium in Montreal is 43,739 for baseball and increases to 65,255. What is the percent increase in the number of seats from baseball to football? Well, if I look at part over whole, well, part is really the same thing as the new version over the original version. It's the same kind of idea. So new over original equals P over 100. So the new amount is the larger one, which is the 65,255, over my original amount, 43,739. That's equal to P over 100. I solve for P again, and I find that P is 149.19%. That means almost 150% of the original gives me the new amount of 65,000. It's asking for the increase, so how much did it go up by? Well, it went up by 49.19%. So the increase was 49.19%. The reason why we don't include the 100 in this case is because that's the original amount. How much did it go up by was an extra 49.19 from its original amount. Jamie received 38 out of 62 on his test. If the passing mark is 60%, did he pass the test? Well, in this case, I'm given three numbers here, and I need three numbers for a whole proportion. So I do have to leave out one of the numbers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave out the percent, find out what his mark was, and then compare that to the original 60%. So the part over the whole, the part in this case was 38 out of 62. What percent is that? So P over 100. So that means I'll figure out what the P is in this case, and and using cross multiplication, I get P equals 61.3%. Because this is higher than the original 60% passing mark, the answer is yes, he passed the test. Now if we continue on and we look at tax. In order to solve tax, there's two ways we can do it. We can either use proportions just like we did before, so using 13 over 100 equals part over whole, or tax over the original amount. Or I can use a little bit faster method, and that's by converting it to decimals. So if you remember 13%, or 13 over 100, which is the HST in Ontario, this is the same thing as 0.13. And so I can use that as a factor to find out my tax. If I want to include the entire amount, I can instead of multiplying by 0.13, I'll multiply by 1.13. And what that means is I'm including the original, this includes the original amount. Whereas the other one, the 0.13, is the tax only. So this one says, 2 shirts cost $14.74 each. What is the tax that will be charged? This means I only want to know the tax. So first of all, let's calculate the subtotal of the shirts. So this is 2 shirts times $14.74 per shirt. If you remember our rates, I cancel out what's on the top and what's on the bottom when I'm multiplying. So 2 times $14.74 is $29.48. Notice that I had to use the word shirts in the number 2 and then the shirts in the rate so that they're able to cancel out, so that they no longer exist in my answer. Now I'm only halfway done. I want to know what the tax that will be charged, so I have $29.48 times 0.13, because that is the tax rate, or the same thing as 13 over 100. And I get the answer $3.8324. Well, we remember money only has 2 decimal places, so this is approximately $3.83 for the tax. The last question, the crate of DVDs holds 24 DVDs at $9.97 each. What is the total cost of all of these DVDs, including the tax? So in order to solve this, I do 24 DVDs times $9.97 per DVD. And so now I have 24 times 9.97, and I get the subtotal of $239.28. DVDs cancel with DVDs. I am left with just the dollars now. Now I'm asking for what is the total cost of the DVDs, including tax. So that means I'm going to take the 239.28 and I'll be multiplying it by 1.13, because that's now going to include the original amount of $239.28. So now in total this cost me $270.3864. Well, this is approximately $270.39, including the tax. If we continue on to the next page, and we're looking at rebates. So when we're looking at rebates, we need to carefully look at what does it mean if something is 25% off on our rebate. That means we're actually paying, so if I chop off a quarter of this price, this is 25%. 25% off means I'm actually paying 75% of the price. So there's a couple ways I can look at this. So if I look at this problem, I can solve it in 2 ways. A CD player costs $29.40, but is on clearance at 40% off. Calculate the sale price. So the first way is to calculate the rebate and then subtract it from the original price. So if we redraw this, and this is the 40% that I'm taking off, so what I'll do is the original price cost $29.40. So I can calculate the rebate, how much I'm saving. P over 100 equals the saving amount, so the rebate amount, over the original amount. So that means the 40%, which is 40 over 100. I don't know the rebate amount, but I do know the original amount is $29.40. So I'll use R as my rebate amount, and my rebate amount is going to be equal to, and if I use cross multiplication again, which is 29.4 times 40 divided by 100, and the rebate amount is $11.76. That means I'm removing that from that, so which means my original was $29.40 minus $11.76. That means the sale price is $17.64. The second method is to calculate the sale price directly, which means, thinking of it this way, instead of taking off the 40%, I'm actually going to be now thinking about the amount I'm paying. I am paying 60% of this CD player. So that means I'll use this P over 100, but now I'm going to be looking at the sale price over the original price. And the 60% is the amount that I am paying. That's the sale price. The original price was $29.40. So the sale price, S, is now $29.40 times 60 divided by 100, and I get the same answer, $17.64. So notice that I'm looking at this problem in two different ways, but I get the same answer. The first way was to find the sale price and then find the rebate amount and then subtract the two. And then in the other way, the other method, I find out what I'm paying directly, what is the leftover amount, the 60% that I'm paying, and finding that one directly. They're both acceptable. The second method is a little bit faster because it allows you to do the calculations and find the answer in one step rather than in two different steps. Principal and interest. If we remembered in class, the principal is the amount that we are borrowing or that we are investing. So this is the original amount. The interest amount is the extra little tax that we have to pay in order to borrow this larger amount. So the original amount that we're borrowing or that we're investing is called the principal, and the interest that we're gaining or the interest that's being charged to us, kind of like the tax, is called the interest. So we use the same kind of setup. So instead of percent, we're looking at interest rate and then the interest amount over the principal amount. A credit card has a 19.5% interest rate and you charge $4,500 on the card. How much will you owe after 1 year of interest? Well, what we'll look at again is P over 100 equals interest over principal, or part over whole. If you really like using part over whole, then you can use that too. But now I'm just using these words to help kind of set it in the financial way. 19.5% is 19.5 over 100, and the principal amount is the amount that I'm charging on the card, so that's 4,500 on the bottom. Whereas the interest rate, the interest is the amount that I'm going to be charged, and I'll delete that as an I. So if I solve this, I is equal to 4,500 times 19.5 divided by 100, and I get the answer $877.50. That means how much will I owe? That means the total is equal to the principal, or P, plus the interest, I. The original principal was $4,500. Interest, which I was, is $877.50. That means after 1 year, I'll be charged $5,377.50. This is how much I'll owe because of this extra amount. after 10 years, I don't re-owe the principal amount every single year. The 4,500, I will always owe that. But what I am multiplying is the interest. So this is letter B. The interest after 10 years is equal to $877.50 per year. Per year times 10 years. The actual interest amount then is $8,775. Years cancel out. $8,775 is only the interest that I'll be paying on this $4,500 amount. This now, my total is equal to $4,500 plus that $8,775. Just get a little bit of room here. And so now my total is $13,275. Notice how expensive this original thing cost. If I didn't pay it back for 10 years, I'll be paying approximately a little bit less than 3 times the original amount of this item. So your life lesson is, if you charge something on your credit card, pay it back so that you will avoid these large interest charges. So hopefully you understood all of these problems. Go back over these problems. We'll be going over some extra problems